I never thought I'd be the kind of person who shared their story with strangers on the internet. But here I am. Maybe it's because my friends and family don't fully understand, or maybe because this story feels like something out of a movie, the kind you think only happens to other people. But it happened to me, and I'll never be the same again.
The perfect beginning. I met Daniel 12 years ago. At the time, I was in my late 20s, working long hours, chasing a career, and telling myself I didn't have time for love. Daniel slipped into my life when I least expected it. He was charming in the effortless way some people are, with a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We dated for 2 years before getting married. Our wedding was simple but beautiful. Friends and family gathered under twinkling lights, glasses clinking, laughter filling the air. I remember thinking that night, I am the luckiest woman alive. For the next decade, our life looked picture perfect from the outside. Weekend trips, family dinners, Instagram-worthy vacations. Friends called us the dream couple. Even my parents used to tell me how lucky I was to have found someone so dependable, so trustworthy. But perfection is often an illusion.
The first cracks were small, almost invisible. He started working later. At first, it made sense. He had a demanding job, and I admired his dedication. But then came the locked phone. The sudden hesitations when I asked simple questions like, "Who were you texting?" The way he'd smile, but never really answer. I brushed it off. We had 10 years of trust built between us. Why would I question it? But sometimes your gut whispers the truth long before your mind is ready to hear it. There were weekends when he'd say he was going on work trips. At first, I believed him. But then a colleague of his, someone I knew casually, once mentioned in passing, "Oh, Daniel wasn't at the office that weekend." My stomach dropped. I laughed it off, pretending I hadn't heard, but inside I felt the first real sting of suspicion.
One evening, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I had never snooped before. It wasn't who I was. But something inside me told me to look. The message was simple, just 5 words, but it shattered my world. "I miss you already, love." Not from a coworker, not from a friend, but from someone saved under a name I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I scrolled up. Dozens of messages, pet names, plans to meet, pictures, intimate ones. It wasn't just a fling. It was a relationship, a parallel life he was living while coming home to me every night. When he stepped out of the shower, towel around his waist, humming like nothing had changed, I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone in his face, but I didn't. I put it back down exactly where it was and pretended I hadn't seen a thing. Why? Because shock does that to you. It paralyzes you. The following weeks were a blur. I acted normal, but inside, I was unraveling. Every kiss goodnight felt like a lie. Every smile he gave me looked rehearsed. I became an actress in my own life, playing the role of happy wife while my heart broke into pieces behind closed doors. I started digging quietly. Call logs, bank statements, hotel receipts tucked into his jacket pocket. The evidence piled up. He wasn't just cheating, he was building a second life. The other woman wasn't just some stranger. She was younger, beautiful, and from what I could piece together, convinced she was in a serious relationship with him. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, was promising her a future at the same time he was sitting at dinner with me, holding my hand across the table. The worst part? He was good at it. He had perfected the art of lying. He remembered to delete certain messages, kept stories straight, and always looked me in the eye when he said, "I love you." But the truth was bleeding through the cracks, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The breaking point. The confrontation came on a rainy Friday night. I had planned it all day, rehearsed it in my head. When he walked through the door, shaking off his umbrella, I asked him to sit down. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady, "who is she?" He froze, just for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of panic in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" he asked too quickly. I pulled out the printed messages, the photos, the receipts. I laid them on the table between us like evidence in a courtroom. His face drained of color. For the first time in 10 years, I saw the mask slip. He tried denial, then excuses. "It didn't mean anything. I was stressed. You don't understand." But the more he spoke, the clearer it became. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was years of deception. Finally, I asked the question that had been clawing at my chest for weeks. "Do you love her?" Silence. And in that silence, I had my answer. The aftermath. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. He begged for forgiveness, promised he'd end it, promised he'd change. But every word out of his mouth felt poisoned. I couldn't unsee the betrayal. I couldn't unhear the lies. I packed a bag and left. Friends offered me couches, spare rooms, shoulders to cry on. My family, heartbroken themselves, told me I was stronger than I knew. Meanwhile, he continued to call, text, show up at my work. But the more he tried to pull me back, the more I realized how far gone he already was. The man I married no longer existed. Maybe he never did. Maybe he was just a character he played until the mask slipped. The lesson. It's been months now. The divorce is in process. Some nights I still wake up expecting to feel him next to me, and the emptiness beside me feels unbearable. Other nights, I feel a strange kind of peace, like I've escaped a prison I didn't realize I was in. Here's what I've learned. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your sense of reality. The person you trust most can be the one who destroys you the deepest. And sometimes, letting go isn't weakness, it's survival. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy. I pity him. Because no matter how many lies he told, no matter how many secret lives he built, he'll never know what it's like to be truly loved by someone who gave everything. And as for me, I'm starting over, piece by piece, step by step. Because life has a way of showing us who truly belongs in our story, and who was just a painful chapter we had to survive. Trust is like glass. Once shattered, you can try to piece it back together, but it will never be the same. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the shards and start fresh.